Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge. And I am so excited to make this video. You can tell by crazy eyes. If you probably don't even know this because it hasn't even been long enough for these to be in my weekly wrap-ups yet. You probably saw it on my Monday, my wrap-up. But I have been going bananas for Immortals After Dark. Maybe you've seen my Instagram posts or my Twitter feed, but I basically have binged almost the entire series in 2 weeks. I have thrown off everything else I was supposed to be reading. Thankfully, I'm a mood reader, and getting sucked into a series and plowing through it is one of the joys from my youth still, which I know sounds really funny, but it's the truth. I love when I can get drawn into something and nothing else matters for that time, because all I want to do is plow through a series. And for me, Immortals After Dark is one of those. So this is kind of gonna call back to a few videos I made on my channel in the early days, where it's called a PSA, so a public service announcement. Maybe I should call it a PRA, a public reading announcement, because I've always been hesitant about paranormal, and I don't know what it is. I used to love them. I think part of it has to do with the fact of I kind of wore myself out with it back in the day. When I was a teen, I read a ton of paranormal, and I think I got a little bit burned out with it at the time, and then it's just always stuck in my head as kind of I don't really want to read these. Well, I was wrong. So the way I came about this series is that I'm a big fan of the Fated Mates podcast, which I didn't know when I started listening to it, because I've only been listening to it for, well, I guess it's been about 6 months, but they were already on season 2, and they weren't talking about IAD anymore. But they started this podcast to talk about Immortals After Dark. And so their whole first season was going through the books that are out so far. So I just want to kind of go over, first I'm going to go over 3 reasons why I think you should read these, so that if you don't want to stay, I'm really not going to get into spoilers. I'm only going to say what the book is, a little bit about the world, and then what characters are in each world, and just kind of talk through some of my feels, because I have so many right now that I just need to share. So a couple things that I want to share first is 3 reasons why I think you should read this series, okay? So this is absolutely the non-spoiler part of it if you don't want to know anything. But with this series, when you're going to make a commitment of this series is still going on, we believe it's coming to a close soon, but that could still be 5 or 10 years. 3 more books could be that amount of time. But there's currently 17 books out, 3 of which are novellas, but there's a lot. You will be addicted to them if you like this kind of stuff, though. I read them in 2 weeks, and I know that I'm more than your average bear, but I could not stop, because the way that Cressley weaves this world, the way that there's just enough of the next characters in the book before you're okay, I don't know how you're gonna make that guy a hero, I gotta keep reading. And I said that in each book, and by the last few, even though I'm oh, I hate these people, how am I gonna like this book, I was you know what, she's done it with every man and some of the women all the way to this point, so I'm just gonna trust her. I'm just gonna give over and let it be. So I'm gonna give you the 3 reasons why I think you should read this series, and then we'll get into the books. So number 1, strong females. I have never read women like this in books, and I'll tell you a dirty secret. I don't always like to read them, because I think sometimes that there's an agenda behind it. I know that sounds weird, I know. But I want to believe why the women are acting like this. I want to see, they're not just being loudmouths or brash or whatever. I want to see it as a part of their character, why they're talking like that, why they're doing those things, why they have that kind of power. And each one of these women, and not all of them are as strong as others, because they all have so much character, and I just felt yes, I want to be these warrior women, and I want the main creatures in this series, I haven't even got to that yet, but like the Valkyrie are who we start with, and we still have Valkyrie popping up here and there through most of the series, and they're just these like badass women who are in control of everything. Like they're in control of when they have children, if they have children, they're in control of, you know, if they accept their mate, if they don't. Like that's the thing in this series, is that you have a mate, but the men are the ones who carry the burden of being a mate, if that makes sense. Like they're the ones who will have like physical effects from it. Like they, in cases of like the vampires, they can't get it up if it's not for theirs. Like demons, they'll never be able to like ejaculate if it's not theirs. Like they can't do those things for anyone else but their mate. Not all of them. Some of them can still carouse, which is fun. Like they don't want them all to be the same. But I think that is so fun that the women are the ones in charge. Like if you're not good to your mate, if you don't give her a reason to want to be with you, then you're SOL. Then you are miserable and sexually frustrated for all of eternity if you mess this up with your wife or your intended. And I really like that, because I feel like none of the women like take advantage of that. It's just a fact of like, you need to win this woman, and it's good. Number 2, the alpha males. So in Paranormal, the reason why and I didn't even know this, because my first Paranormal series, which was The Carpathians by Christine Feehan, I read those. Those are the ones I'm talking about. I kind of burned myself out on them at the time. I didn't realize it was the alpha male traits that I wanted so much. I'm aware of that now because of the kind of books I like and the things that I read. I know that it's the alpha male that just speaks to me. And when you're dealing with these, like the werewolves, the vampires, the demons, the any combination therein of, their like instinctual like mine that they feel for their woman is just like, like it just does things to me. It gets in my veins, and I just love it. I read so many of these books. Like I'm getting like chills right now, like talking about it with you, because, and they're all just damaged, beautiful alpha males, because there is stuff going down in the paranormal world, and they're amazing. And then the third reason is this universe. From the first book, it's so well set up, and there are like, I cannot wait to reread this series. I'd like want to do it right now. I have never finished a series this long and been ready. Like even while I was reading it, I was like, man, I want to go back and read that other book, because I think she set things up in that book that are happening in this one, and it's just so great. Like listen to the Fated Mates podcast if you want to be convinced, because that's what I did. Is I'd listen to the first 3 of them, kind of talking myself into it, and then I had an extra Audible credit. And I just went ahead and was like, okay, I'll buy A Hunger Night like no other, and I'll just listen to it. And then I've done nothing else for 2 weeks. Like, haven't gone out. I know it's Corona, but still, like, there are things I could be doing. And I haven't went grocery shopping. I haven't done my laundry. I haven't done anything but sit here and listen to these books. And they're amazing. So there you go. That's my 3 reasons why you should give this a try. And then I'm going to get into talking about each of the books. I'll go over who's in them, what creatures that they are, and just kind of tell you like why I like that book. And then I'll see if I can pick a favorite hero talking through it. I don't think that I can. But so the other first thing I want to say is, so I've read books 1 through 15, but I have skipped a couple things. So I'm still reading those. Like in fact, I own 2 of these books I'm talking about, but I just wanted to talk about these today. And from what I've heard, those other ones aren't like as important yet. But yeah, after reading Sweet Ruin, I was just like, I can't read anything else right now. I need to stop now, because that book is amazing. So I haven't read the prequel, which is The Warlord Wants Forever, which if you go on, if you're on Goodreads to look this up, it'll say that that's book number 1. Or I guess it does say 0.5, so that's good, because it's really not the first book. You can't start there, even though you meet those characters in book 2, I think. You meet them in like 1 and 2. You wouldn't know any of the stuff that's going on if you haven't read one of the other books to like get in. Then I haven't read Untouchable, which fits in at number 7, and I haven't read Shadow's Claim, Shadow's Seduction, or Wicked Abyss, which is 12, 16, and 17. So once you're in the series and you're reading, you'll understand why I skipped those. I also skipped those because I was reading along with the Fated Mates podcast, and that's the order that they did the books in. And I don't feel like I missed anything. I feel like those books are only going to like fill in some spots, which I'm excited to get to. I have, like I said, I've ordered all of the ones that I don't have, and so I'm just waiting for Better World Books and Thrift Books to bring them to me, and then I'm gonna like dive back into some of these. So let's go ahead and get started with this part of the video. This series starts off with a bang. Like I feel like you get a taste of the best and the worst of everyone right off the jump of this book. So we have Lachlan, who is the king of the Lycae, which is the werewolves. This book is called A Hunger Like No Other, if you haven't heard. And he has been trapped in a dungeon for a very long time. So much so that the rest of the Lycae, they don't know what's happened to him. They don't know where he is. And he scents his mate. And so the Lycae, they are the most animalistic, literally, of all of the creatures that we get introduced to. And so Lachlan, he scents his mate above him, above him in the world, and he is in a dungeon. And so he bites off his own leg to get out of prison. And then he escapes and he finds Emma. Now Emma is a young Valkyrie / vampire. She's a halfling, and she has been being kept safe by her Valkyrie aunts. And so all the Valkyrie live at this place called Valhall in Louisiana, where they just like live at this big like it's almost like a sorority, but like crazy dangerous, and all these Valkyries have these different like powers and things. And Emma is still kind of a baby. Like she's only 40, which is really young. I think she's like just become immortal, and she hasn't drank from a human before, so she only like drinks from blood legs and things like that. And when Lachlan finds her and gets her, he is furious. He is furious that the king of the Lycae has finally found his mate, and she is half vampire, which is the Lycae's greatest enemy. So the lore, which is what all of these all the magical creatures are called, the paranormal creatures are called the lore, and so they're called Delorians. And there is like factions between them where there's like the good and the evil, and they battle each other. And there's this thing coming that comes every 500 years that's called an accession, where the good and the evil will fight and one of them will win, and then that's how the next like 500 years will be decided, is how that works. So we start out with Lachlan being very pissed that he was given the short end of the stick, as he feels, and so he's not great to Emma. So right away we're getting to see that this is like, you find your fated mate and it's not always going to be hunky-dory rosy. In fact, it's never going to be that way, because then there wouldn't be any drama. But the things that are great about it are like Emma, she starts as really kind of demure and quiet because she doesn't feel powerful or feel like she has anything going for her. But the first time this vampire gets a bite of her mate, because that's the thing, is she can drink from her mate because she can't kill him. Because that's how like a vampire becomes evil, is if they drink someone to death, like if they drain someone. But they also then will get to see that person's memories, and they are taking some of their life essence. And if they drink that person to death, they get all of their power, which we will see happen later on in the series. But Emma is just like basically kind of getting abused by him in the beginning, because she, you know, isn't as strong as other vampires, and she's just very overwhelmed by the fact that she was just living her like quiet life because her aunts really kind of like spoil her and take care of her, and now she's in the hands of this Lycae, who the Lycae, the way that they claim their mate is on the first full moon that they have their mate, they claim them under the full moon, and they basically, they bite them, and then they have sex all night is how they claim their mate. And it's something that is really intense, and it also really sets up for the story that this is not going to be this is a fully rated R series, and it's delicious. It's delicious. So that's enough talking about the first book in this series, but that's the one that you're going to start with, so I wanted to set a good thing for this. And like the Lyca and the Valkyrie, they're supposed to be like on the same side, but yet everybody still kind of fights within themselves, and the treatment of how Lachlan treats Emma is not setting things off to a good start with them. And so there's a lot of conflict that it's like Emma could fix it by telling them that she is his mate and she wants to be with him, but he needs to give her a reason to want to be with him, and the way that he is treating her at the beginning is not a good start for that. So then the next book, we have No Rest for the Wicked, which is Sebastian Roth, who is a vampire, but he is a forebearer. So a forebearer vampire is someone who's been turned, but they have never drank from a human or drained them to death. So Sebastian was turned involuntarily by his older brother, who his name is Nikolai, and he's actually the one who's in the prequel. And because all of his brothers were dying from plague, basically. And so this older brother who'd been turned, he turned him. And so Sebastian, and the vampires is one of the breeds that they cannot have sex with anyone except their mate. So until they've been blooded, which is amazing. And we get to see that, and I actually have that one, No Rest for the Wicked, when Katerin the Cold-Hearted, is that her name? Yeah, Katerin the Cold-Hearted, who is one of the Valkyries. She's a full-blooded Valkyrie. She's Emma's aunt. She gets sent to kill this vampire that is living in his castle alone, not hurting anyone, but it creeps everybody in the place out, so they call for the Valkyrie to come and kill him. And when she shows up to kill him, he, boing, wakes up. Wakes up. And so because he's a forebearer, he's a turned vampire, the other vampires of lore don't tell them all the rules. So they've heard of mates before, but Sebastian has kept himself isolated because he doesn't want to kill a human. He's used to being a vampire. He doesn't want to be a part of this. He doesn't know the rules. So when he's facing Katerin and Katerin's there to kill him, he's like, "Do you hear that? What's going on?" And he like feels the walls shake and crumble. And Katerin, who she's been around for a while, knows what's happening to him. And she's like, "Oh shit." And she leaves. And so Sebastian is just like, "Oh my God, like you're the one for me." He feels that bone deep connection. And he tries to go after her, but it's daylight. And so then he kind of like, he cleans himself up, gets himself put together, and goes to find Katerin. And now Katerin, she enters every, however long it is they have it, in this thing that's kind of like an immortal amazing race. And these like any of the mortals can enter this race that this goddess puts on, and they do it for a prize. And the prize of this one is a very special mystical item, which I won't tell you what it is. And so Sebastian decides the best way to win Katerin is to join the competition as well and be like a second person going for the prize for her, so that they can like, so that it's double the people going for it. And so he tries to win her that way. Next we have Wicked Deeds at Winter's Night. A lot of these titles, especially the first half, are confusing. This one is Bowen McGrieve, who is a Lyca. He's a cousin to Lachlan. He is also entered into this same amazing race. So like these first 5 books all take place about the same time. So that's something to keep in mind. Like the first 5 books, if any of these that I talk about seem interesting to you, you can start with one of those and then just, you know, read those 5 before you go on to the next ones. So that's kind of nice, because if any of these creatures seem interesting to you and you want to try starting with them, you can do that, because they're all taking place at the same time and they're all with a different creature. So they're explaining that creature's lore, basically, right? So this is Bowen McGreeve, and he is also entered into this because the prize of this, as we talked about, is something really amazing. And so Bowen, he is a werewolf who's lost his mate, or he thinks so. And so he wants to enter this competition and win because the prize of it would possibly help him get his mate back. So he meets Mariquetta the Awaited, who is a witch, the queen of the witches, the leader of the witches. She's very young though, but she has the powers of all the different branches of the witches all within her. And she's also entered into this competition. And her and Bowen, they have some like hate to love chemistry going on, right? All of these characters do with each other. It's how it works. And push comes to shove, he ends up trapping her in a cave with some demons, who we will meet these demons shortly. And she gets stuck there. Like, he thinks they're going to be able to get out, so that he thinks he's only locking them in for a certain time, but actually they're locked in there for 2 weeks with a bunch of incubus who take her to the ceiling and like leave her trapped up there. So all the demons down below who are like, they become, all these people like become allies together basically. They can't get to her and she's just trapped there. And when Bowen was trapping her in, she put a curse on him. She put a curse on him that he would not be able, I can't remember the exact words to it, but she puts a curse on him that he's going to die if he doesn't come back to let her out. So it's been 2 weeks. She still isn't out yet, and he has to go back to get her. And so now, and then he realizes she's his mate. And he thinks she's put a spell on him to be his mate, and she's like, no, I'm not. I'm actually your mate, but guess what? I don't want you to claim me because I hate you. So he gets himself into some trouble. Then we have Dark Needs at Night's Edge, and this is about Conrad Roth, who is Sebastian and Nikolai's brother. They're 4 Roth brothers. And so he's a vampire who has killed. So he has red eyes. He has drank his enemies to death. And so he also has amassed all the power of the beings that he has killed throughout his life. And so his other 3 brothers, at the beginning of this story, they capture him. They team up to capture him. And they take him to this abandoned manor that they purchase. And they tie him in the basement. They shackle him to the basement. And they are going to make him like dry out, basically, so that they can get him on bagged blood, so that he won't be evil. Because that's the thing. Everyone you kill and suck them dry, you have their memories. And they start to drive you crazy. So vampires go crazy. The older they are, the more people that they have drank to death. They carry all those memories in their head and they go a little bit twisty. So he gets trapped in this place. Little do they know, this manor actually used to belong to this woman named Noemi, who was a ballerina in the 20s, and she was murdered at her mansion, and so she haunts it. So it's very interesting, and I really don't want to say too much about this one, but Noemi is Conrad's mate, and so though no one else can see her, he can see her and hear her. And they don't know why this is, but it's because she's his mate. But because she's a ghost, he isn't like blooded by her. He's just able to see her. And so they have this beautiful like conversation of talking to each other. And there's also another fun thing is that Conrad is a virgin because he was, before he was turned into a vampire, he was part of this order that they were monks. So they were vampire hunters who were monks. And so he was turned into a vampire, the thing that he hunted and hated. And ooh, it just hurts so good. But so he's actually a virgin. And Noemi, she had lovers and paragons, and she was a ballerina. And so she shares some of her experiences with him and tells him how to seduce a woman, which is really, so like, she's saying like, when you find your mate, you can do these things for her. And she feels like she's helping him out, but she wants to be his mate. But how will she do that? She's a ghost. Oh, these books are so good because you're like, how is this going to happen? Then we have Dark Desires After Dusk, which is Cadion Woweed, who is our first demon. So we met Cadion and his brother Rydstrom in the book with Mariquetta, where they're the demons that are trapped in there with her. They were competing in this competition as well. And Kadion actually kind of had a thing for Mariketa, but with demons, how they find their mate is they do something called attempting, which means they can get it up, but they can't ejaculate until they're with their mate. So they can have sex, they can orgasm, but nothing's coming out. They're firing nothing. So it's very interesting. So they will get a good feeling about who their mate is, but they won't fully know until they're doing the deed and like, whoop, there it went. So for this one, Kadion is pretty sure he knows who his mate is. It's this human named Holly, who she is a researcher and teacher, and she's this like mousy woman who does like coding, and I hate using mousy, but she kind of is. She like hides herself because for certain reasons. So she doesn't know this, but she's actually half Valkyrie, half human, and not only is she that, she is the one who will bear the next like heir for the accession. Is that what's supposed to happen? I think so. There's lots of paranormal rules. And Kadion has been tasked with bringing this woman to, like, him and his brother are kind of mercenary right now because they have been kicked out of their kingdom and they're trying to get it back. And this one guy, he like asked for her, and if they bring her to him, then they'll like give them help to get their kingdom back, one of those. But he also thinks she's just human, and so he could never claim her because as a demon, like, he would hurt her if he claimed her because they're just so strong and all these things. But it becomes really clear that she is half something else, because at the beginning of this book there are other people also trying to capture her, because if they get a baby on her, that decides the course of the next accession. Like, whoever, if the children are for good or evil, that will give power to that side. And so this book starts with, he's been following her for a while because he knows this person is his mate, so he's still drawn to her, but he's been staying away from her. And then she is about to be raped by a bunch of demons, like bad ones. And so she actually saves herself, because she lets forth a Valkyrie scream, which can like break glass and like hurt everyone, and then like Kadion helps get her out of there. And now they end up stuck together, and they end up going on an adventure together, and he has to decide like whether he will get his mate or whether he will, you know, go along with helping his brother get his kingdom back, which is rough. But then we get, this is for me the first one where I was like, I don't know how this can work out, because all the ones before I was like, this is going to be fine, it's going to be good. And that's going to happen book after book after book in this series. Like I said, you will have no idea how these couples are going to work out, but they do. So we have Kiss of a Demon King, which is Rydstrom's book. So Kadion's older brother, the one who is the king of the demons, who has lost his throne, he gets, and we see this happen in the last book, he gets kidnapped by Sabine, the sorceress of illusions. She's this evil beauty who, her and her sister Leanthe are being like held captive in their stepbrother's court, who has taken over Rydstrom's court. And it is foretold that the child that her and Rydstrom have will be the heir to this demon throne, and she wants that power. And so she kidnaps him to strap him to a bed to get him to mate her, because she knows he's his mate. So she's planning to seduce him into knocking her up, basically. And it is intense. It feels icky. Sabine, usually we're on the side of the heroine for most of the book. Even though we get to see her past, like, we know the horrible things that have happened to her and like what has made her kind of like shut down emotionally, and like what she's going to do to Rydstrom though is like, how are you gonna come back from this? Like, how, like, you can't do this to him. But she basically like edges him for days, trying to get him to come inside her, literally and figuratively and in all the ways. And he is doing everything he can to resist, because he's like, I could just sleep with you and then not claim this child. And she's like, well, you're going to marry me first. Because pretty much all of these creatures, they have a different kind of like wedding ritual than others. But it becomes a situation then of turnabout's fair play, because eventually he escapes with the help of a certain vampire who we see throughout the series. And then he takes her captive and decides that he is going to do the same thing to her for 3 days, and then maybe they'll see if they can be mates. So, man, this entire book is edging and it's painful, but it's also amazing because these two strong-willed people who are definitely meant for each other need to find their way past all of the betrayals that they do to each other, and it's amazing. Okay, so let's go on to book 8, which is Pleasure of a Dark Prince. So this one is Gareth McGreeve, who is a Lyke, and Lucia I can't remember what her name is, Lucia the Huntress, who has a mystical power where she is the world's most perfect archer, but the way that she is she has to be chaste. And so this becomes a little bit complicated because at the beginning of our book, the werewolves, who they're mostly all Scottish, so it's super hot, they are having a rugby game, and he scents his mate, and it's Lucia. And so he looks over and he sees her. And the Lyke, when you scent your mate, number one, they all immediately know who it is, and number two, they just say, it's happened. And all the rest of the Lyke are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like, they're like, where are they? Where is she? We'll help you find her, because they're all just so excited for their brethren when they find their mate. And so I love the Lyke. They have the best like camaraderie, maybe besides the Valkyrie, of like everyone. And so, but the thing is Lucia needs to be chaste, and she isn't a virgin, but she's chaste for a reason, because of something horrible that happened to her in the past. And she has a very serious goal that she needs to accomplish, and McGreeve is just like, so she leaves him. She leaves him for a year. And that is a horrible thing to do to a Lyke mate, because every full moon, his Lyke is dying to have its mate, and it will kill anyone that's in its way. It will do whatever it has to do. And so McGreeve has found a way to hold that back for all this time, but it is very hard on him. And she has her reasons, and like we know the backstory of her, what happened to her, and like why she would not want to have a husband or to give up this power she has of being chaste and what this power brings her. But also, it was a horrible thing to do to McGreeve. And McGreeve is Gareth McGreeve is awesome. And so you really feel for him too. But they end up on an amazing journey together. It's so much fun. So next, we start what's called Torture Island. And with that, we get this book called Demon from the Dark. And so this book, this is where things get like more complicated to explain. But basically, there are not only just like all these creatures in the world, but there are different planes that people live on and things like that. And so with this book, we have this Veman. We meet our first Veman, who's a vampire demon named Malcolm Slane, who he has lived through some horrible things that have happened to him. And he's basically kind of like king of the water in this one certain plane, where he's keeping all these other demons away from the water in this one place. And he's just this, like, he's maddened and he's crazy, and we just don't know what to think about him, but we love him. Okay, well, like, we love him already. Okay, like, he's beautiful. And then we meet Caro Greer, who's a witch. She's called Caro the Incarcerated because she is trouble. Like, she's never cared much about anyone, and she's just, her darkness is just, she's crazy. But she has been captured along with a bunch of other Lorians who are all stuck on this island, which we call Torture Island, where they are vivisected and blood is taken and experiments are done on them, because it's a bunch of humans who are trying to understand the weaknesses of the lore. And so there's a bunch of characters all kept captive this way, and Caro gets kidnapped and she's getting sent on a mission by Declan Chase, who is the leader of this island, who is a horrible villain. Just wait. And he tells her that he wants her to go and get this Veman from this other plane and be at this portal in a week's time and bring this Veman back. And the reason she has to go is that one of her cousins was killed and left behind a 7-year-old daughter. And Caro is the only family this girl has left. So we take this person who I picture her as like a 20-year-old. She's not, like, but in Valkyrie years, she's still young. She's, you know, like my age or something. And she's just been living the life she wanted to live. And now she has this little girl's life put in her hands. And so she's going to go get this Veman. But when she gets there, because this is both a vampire and a demon, he has 2 things happen to him. Number 1, he gets blooded when he meets her. And he knows that she's his mate. And they don't speak the same language because she doesn't know demonish. And it becomes kind of a like castaway story. And they have to try to like communicate together. And they're falling in love, and she's going to have to betray him. And it's good, and it's really intense. Then we have Dreams of a Dark Warrior. And this is Declan Chase and Regan the Radiant. And so the story of these two is that Declan Chase is reincarnated every so often because he is meant to be with Regan. Who Regan, when she was very young, she met this Viking berserker who was working on becoming immortal, because if he wins enough battles, he becomes immortal. And they fall in love when she's very young, and when she is old enough, he claims her. And when he claims her, he dies. And he vows that he will always come back for her. So there's been 4 other times in history where he has come back for her, and every time, once they have sex, he remembers who he is, and then he dies. And so Regan tries to stay away from him always. Well, this time around, Aiden the Fierce was the name of that berserker. He's reincarnated as Declan Chase. And Declan Chase, as I just said, is the leader of Torture Island. And he was tortured by Lorians when he was a child. And now he hates them and carries out evil deeds against them. And Regan first is trying to get him to remember her, trying to do everything that she can for him to remember her so that he will stop what he's doing, but things go too far and it's not good. It's not good. But it becomes a like, how do you redeem this person who's done the things they have? And I will say that for me, he's 80% redeemed to me because of based on the things that happened to him, and then the way he's brainwashed by the guy above him who he looks to as a father figure, but really like brainwashed him. And then like also what he goes through to make up to Regan. Like, I'm down with it. Then we get to, oh my gosh, for me this is tied with my favorite book in this series so far, and I think a lot of people feel that way. And we finally get Lothair, who is the enemy of old. He is one of the oldest vampires that we know, and we have seen his machinations and him popping in to help people, and he's been collecting debts from the people he's helped since pretty much the beginning. And Lothair was also on Torture Island, so we see him quite a bit in Dreams of a Dark Warrior because he's also been captured, and we know that he's trying to get back to someone in this book. And it turns out that he has been blooded, and he has a mate. And his mate is this girl named Ellie Pierce, who's a human. She is from the South, and she has, like, I listened to these on Audible, she has the craziest accent that Robert Peckoff gives her. And she's young, and she's been possessed by Soroya, who's like the goddess of like evil, basically. And here's the thing. Lothair was told who his mate was, and so he's been watching Ellie for a while. And he first saw her when she was 12, and like a vampire doesn't get blooded by his mate until she is old enough, which not even puberty, like when she's old enough, which is great because when you're dealing with immortal creatures, time is relative, but as humans, we're still just like, she's a baby. And so the day that he comes back to check on her, and he is pissed that it's a human, okay? Because he believes that he deserves the best. And Lothair is a snob, he's an asshole, he's a misogynist, he's like class, like he's all those things. But he is like the enemy of old, his reputation precedes him. There's things about him why he has a reason to be cocky, but also he's horrible. But when he comes back to see Ellie again, when I think she's like 21 or so, she is now possessed by Soroya. And so he's now blooded this time because Ellie's old enough, so he thinks that he's been blooded by Soroya, who she is cursed to always inhabit someone else's body and never have her own. And she knows that she's not his mate. Like, she knows that Ellie, the human, is his mate because she is this goddess scorns sex. So she is a sexual temptress because she's like a Venus flytrap. She lures like her followers in and then like kills them, but she never has sex. So Lothair gets blooded and he is like so ready for his mate. He's like, yes, this is it. This is why I was drawn to Ellie, because Soroya is going to be in her, but really it's Soroya. And so he goes about a plan to get Ellie's soul taken out of her own body and let Soroya keep that body. And then he's going to make Soroya his queen because he plans to take over the vampire throne. Big plans. And the beginning of this book is that Soroya, when she takes over Ellie's body, she will murder people. And Ellie woke up to a room full of dead who had been trying to exorcise Soroya from her, and it didn't work. And so Ellie wakes up and she's going to kill herself because she's like, that's the only way I can take this out. Like, I can't handle this. Well, Lothair shows up and he says, you cannot kill yourself until I find a way to get rid of you. And so he makes sure she goes to prison. So Ellie ends up on death row for 5 years while Lothair goes about trying to find a way to remove Ellie from her body. And remember how Lothair said he was trying to get back to someone? Well, the same day that Ellie is scheduled for lethal injection, Lothair shows up and stops it. And he's furious because he says, how dare you, this puny tiny human, think that you can take my mate from me? And so he basically takes Ellie, not basically, he takes Ellie prisoner and says, if you do anything to try to stop this, if you try to stop when Soroya surfaces, if you try to find a way out of this, I will kill your family and I'm still going to take you out anyway. So Ellie is just like, wow, okay, well, I guess if I want to protect my family, I have to do this. But here's the thing. Soroya, she's not perfect for Lothair. And so we are fully only on Ellie's side, where we should be. But Soroya, she doesn't want to have sex with Lothair or be his mate or have children with him or do any of those things. She's like, you can have concubines for that. You can do this. And he's like, no, because based on history, the couples that do best ruling it, they're together in all ways. Like, they're committed to each other, will make them good rulers. And she's just like, Soroya's just like, well, what if you keep Ellie and you can have sex with Ellie whenever you want, and I'm just gonna like be asleep when you do that. And so first Lothair is kind of like, no, I don't want the human. But the more time he spends with Ellie, the more he realizes, wait, maybe Ellie is my mate and Soroya is a parasite holding on to my bride. But Lothair has made some promises, and when you make promises in the lore, you can't take them back too easily. And this book was bananas good, guys. It was so good. So then I read McGrieve. Like I said, I skipped Shadow's Claim at that point because that's part of like a little offshoot called the Dacians, which I don't want to spoil anything, but like I'm going to go back to read Shadow's Claim, but right now I'm not. So then I read McGrieve, which is about Will McGrieve, who's a Lycae, and Chloe, who is the daughter of Webb, who is the man who was in charge of Torture Island, not just Torture Island, but all of them, because there's 5 facilities that do this, which has never come up again yet, but I would like it to. And he is been tortured as young. He was raped and assaulted by a succubus as young. And when he meets Chloe, Chloe is being sold at auction because all of the Lorians want a piece of Webb. And so Chloe was left behind by her father when he ran, and people find out who she is and they kidnap her. And so they go to buy her because they want information about her father, and he realizes she's his mate. So first off, it's tough because he was someone who was tortured at Torture Island, and so falling for, you know, being the mate of his enemy's daughter, like, is hard. But not only that, the first time they make love, because the succubus are called seed eaters because they literally like get strength from their mate's seed, he realizes what she is, and he was tortured by one when he was young. And so he's just like, I don't see how there's a way forward for us because I don't know if I can be with you and not like die. And ooh, it's hard. It's a hard one. Poor McGrieve. That's a rough one. Then there's Dark Sky, which a lot of people don't like, but I thought it was amazing because of the arc in this. So in this one, it's Thronos, who's a reckoner, which they live in the sky. They're kind of like, they would remind you of archangels because they like fight the evil lore kind of thing. And then there's Melanthe, who is a sorcerite, and she is the sister of Sabine. And Thronos and her have been mates for 500 years. And they have also tortured each other for 500 years. Melanthe is a sorcerite with the power of persuasion, so she can persuade people to do whatever she wants them to do. And when Thronos' family found out that he was mated to a sorcerite, which they revile, they went and they killed her parents. And now he showed up later, and he didn't know that his parents did this to her parents. And so she, being a child, because they knew they were mates as children, they hadn't had sex yet or none of that stuff had happened, they just knew that they were each other's mates. She ordered him to jump off this tall tower and not fly away. And so he is crippled to this day because of what she did to him. And we go back to Torture Island here because she was someone who was stuck there. And when Torture Island like implodes, he rescues her and takes her prisoner and is like, you owe me things. Like, you owe me happiness after everything. And it's a little bit skeevy. It's a little bit of thing. It's a very like heavy religious tones. They're not undertones, they're overtones of two people trying to like meet in the middle with their beliefs. And I really did like it because I felt like Thronos had an amazing arc in that story and just how much he changes. Because let's be real, in this one, this isn't one of like people needing to really meet in the middle. Like, he needs to come to her side in a lot of ways. But she does meet him on some things, which I think is sweet because when you read the story, it's very clear that nothing is her fault. It's like all his fault. And they still meet in a really beautiful way. And then we have Sweet Ruin, which I don't even have enough time to talk about this book, but it's the last one I read. I finished it last night, and it's what was like, okay, I have to make a video about this. This is about Ruin the Baneblood, who is half demon, half dark fae, and Josephine, who is a vampire phantom. Now, dark fae, they're a weird cross of people, and crossed with a demon, it means that his whole body is poison. All the liquids in him are poison. Saliva, semen, sweat, all of it is poison. And he is on Earth looking for his next target that he has to take out. And he is a very, very old man, and he is a sensual enforcer. So he uses sex to get information, mostly from nymphs, who are like a spy network, basically. So he comes, he screws them, gets the information, and goes. And this is just something that he feels he's good at because when he was young, many, many years ago, he was used as a prostitute and sex slave. But he's dead inside. And then he meets Josephine, who is young. She doesn't even know what she is because she was kind of just abandoned on this planet. She's a little bit like Supergirl, for other reasons as well. And she thinks he is sexy. And because of some situations where they end up in the same place at the same time, he thinks that she might have information that he needs. So he kind of like cages her in a back alley, and she's just so like, screw you. Like, I'm not going to give you what you want. And then, because he smells so good, she bites him. And he's like, oh my God, you've just killed yourself. Like, and not only does she not die, but she thinks he's delicious. And he freaks the fuck out and is just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I've never felt this way. Sex doesn't get me excited anymore, but I want this person so much. But he's very resistant to her being his mate, which is just like immediately obvious, because of course she would be, because she's the only one who can touch him, lick him, suck him a few ways, and no one else can. But he just can't believe that he would deserve a mate. And so it's amazing. So I'm really torn between, right now, Lothair and Sweet Ruin are like my two favorite right now. That's where I'm at with everything. But I have to go because I need to get back to my real life. But I hope you enjoyed this hour-long video about IAD. I hope you will give it a try. If you want to talk more about like where you could start or the things you're interested in, feel free to ping me, message me. Other people will answer you too, but I'd love to talk with you more about this. So thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more right now.